All right, welcome to another Railway Empire video. This is Attican. I've put my Uber nerd on and I've done some testing, and I want to talk about route optimization city to city. So how many trains should you really run on a route? So I've done some testing that I think will help us come up with some guidelines that we can follow going down the road, and compare that to what I've been saying to you before and see if I got most of it right. So basically what I did was I went into free mode. I went into the east, our favorite spot in Toledo, because it's nice and flat and you can see easily what's going on. Realistic. I did use reduced ticket prices because I'm now trying to play very hard AI when I have AI, and reduced ticket prices. And so let's go see what we can do. I use the general because he doesn't impact the pricing. In hindsight, I could have used somebody else. It's not important. It doesn't make a big difference.
You can really run riot here.
All right, so what we're going to do,
you have to pay attention to your task list if you want to achieve a high rating.
Is put a large station in our headquarters in Toledo, and we're going to put a regular train station with 2 tracks in Grand Rapids. And that represents kind of the classic, when you're expanding, like if you think of the rapid expansion strategy, you keep going out and building these 2-track stations in order to connect. Oh, that's perfect. 140, that's just how it came out on the test. So perfecto. So we've got a 140, in fact, I'm going to leave it just like that. It's nice and flat, 0 incline, perfect. 140 mile piece of track there. And you can see that right up here. In the track construction, you can see the mileage. And it's kind of matters for what we're doing here because we're going to be talking about that a little bit, doing some extrapolations. But at any rate, there's 140 one way, so we're going to double it up. Okay, then we'll put in signals. And let's talk quickly about the signals. Because one thing I have gotten back to is kind of the way when I first started playing this game, the way I like to build my routes was to have not so many blocks. And the reason being that I don't want these trains to come flying in right on top of one another and then line up in one spot. And once they get rolling, I'll kind of tell you what I mean. So I'm going to put an extra block in there and one on this side. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 places a train could stop. We could, in theory, run 9 trains without the system blowing up the way this is set up. I also set up repairs on both ends because I want the maintenance to be as, and you notice we already have to go in debt, and that's going to be part of the deal here. We're going to be in debt, which of course, as you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I am constantly in debt. I embrace debt in this game. Not in life. I'm not a big fan of debt in life, but in this particular game, I do embrace debt. And what was I doing? Oh yes, I'm going to put repair stations in both of these, just because I don't want the maintenance to be any more than a few random events. I don't want it to be some kind of deal where we're running bad trains all the time. Now, what I did was run a whole bunch of different scenarios. Let me see if I can show you some of those right here. So this is a spreadsheet I built. Sorry, I know. I told you, uber nerdy. I've got 1830 tests and I've got 1870 tests. And I ran a whole, and I've even deleted some of them that I ran, but I ran, I see people building lines and they have 1 train on them. And then I see people building lines that have, I don't know, I've seen all kinds of things. I've tried different combinations. So basically I ended up running tests with just 1 train. I bumped it up to like 4 trains going between. Remember, this is a Grasshopper in 1830. It's not the fastest train on the planet. It's like 17 miles per hour. I tried one with taking the 2 lines and making 1 passenger run on one line, 1 freight run on the other, going into the same station, same platform. I've tried 6 passenger and 6 automatic. And then I finally decided, I'll fast forward and tell you, I finally decided that just running automatic is the way to go. So that being said, that to me, we just simplified. To me, the game just got simpler because you're probably doing this already, whether you're conscious of it or not. But when you're running these automatic lines, it really is the easiest, quickest, fastest, cleanest way to do them. And we've said before, these what I call point-to-point connections, where you're going into a specific platform on each end and nobody else uses that line, that's the cleanest way you can go. So let me just start one of these. So let's just run, let's run a 2-train test. So we'll run a test for an automatic line where we're going to have 2 trains running. And I went back to my old way of starting them at each end to give them the best possible chance of surviving. So then I would fast forward it and run it, and boy, it's boring. And run it for 6 months till I had 2 quarterly reports, because the second quarterly report's the one I'm interested in. Because the first one, you get a little honeymoon. Because if you'll notice, if you look at our 2 trains, they always give you this. Do we have 2 trains? Have I screwed up? Come on, tell me I didn't screw up. I screwed up. All right. So, now having said all that, I'm going to do what I did during the test. I'm going to go back. I built the scenario, and then I kept reloading it and testing it. So I'm going to open up the test 1830, which is already set up the way I want it. So basically, I set it up once and saved it, and then went ahead. So probably should have just started from here. So let's do a 2-train test, like he said. Okay. Add that guy. And add that guy. Now do we have 2 trains? Yes, we have 2 trains. But if you'll notice, one of them's full of beer, one of them's full of meat. And that'll go on for a couple of trips. There's this, I call it the honeymoon period, where they kind of spot you some export goods in the cities when you first start. If you ever notice, every time you run meat to cattle line, it seems like they're always full of their product the first time, regardless of whether they've got a good connection to their source or not, their raw material source. They always have that full one. So this is the honeymoon period. So we're going to let it run right on past the first quarter and use the second quarter as results. And I think, honestly, it would be even better if I ran it like a full year and took the fourth quarter results, but I just don't have that much patience. And I don't think it would change the answer. So I would put this on fast forward, let it run, and see how we did. And then I would record at the end of the day, I would record this number right up here for the quarter. So how did we do in this quarter? And you'll notice, are we in debt in this one? Yeah, we're totally in debt. Yeah, that's right. We had to go in debt to even build it, because we put the 2 repair stations on right away, which you probably wouldn't do normally. But again, if you think about how I play, and probably a lot of you as well, you go in debt very fast and you stay in debt most of the time. In fact, debt is one of your best friends. So this goes on and on and on, and runs and runs and runs. And I ran all these tests. So let's go back and look at the spreadsheet that I have. And by the way, I will put this out on my website. I'm having trouble communicating with the web host right now for some reason, but once I get that fixed, I've got a copy of this I'll put out there on my website if you're interested, if you want it. But it's just a bunch of numbers. But what it says is this: if you look at all these tests, what I did is think about how many locomotives would you run on this test? How many tracks would you need? When I say tracks here, I mean a track would be the line going from Toledo to Grand Rapids, and the second track would be the line coming back going from Grand Rapids to Toledo, so you can go on both sides. So obviously, if you're only going to run 1 train, you only need 1 track. So your cost for the track is a lot less. But then of course it goes up to double that for 2 tracks. I also, by the way, ran tests with 3 tracks and 4 tracks, 1 for the freight and then 2 for the freight, and found them to be not that much of a difference, and a bigger cost, and harder to do at the early game. So I kind of drew a line and said, okay, we're going to limit this to having that 1 line between the cities, and what's the best way to go? And then what I did was I took up, what are all the costs for doing this? What's the total? What's the minimum I'd have to spend to run a train, which would be all this setup stuff plus one locomotive, and then what's the total investment for that particular line? And then I recorded after I ran all the tests was my second quarter profit. And then I calculated, well, how long would it take me to recover that entire investment so that I was at break even? So I broke even on this deal. And that to me is a very important number. That's kind of the key, is how long does it take you to break even? And you can see there's one here that actually breaks even in less than a year and projects to do, if you take second quarter profit as your baseline, almost $500,000 in profit. And over a 5-year period, if you take 5 times this amount minus the startup costs, would make you almost $2 million. And that's running 4 automatic trains. And that's the little grasshoppers. Now, that's where I will have to back up a little. I would probably be inclined, if you think about my earlier videos, to say 6 or 8 or more. Now, let's just compare with 6. Here's 6 down here. With 6 trains, naturally, your startup costs are a little higher. There's an extra $60,000 for the 2 grasshoppers that you need. And you actually don't make as much profit. This was fascinating to me. You don't make as much profit with 6 as you do with 4. And I think it simply has to do with turnaround time at these stations. They cannot handle. If you take 6 trains or more and run them through those stations, the turnaround time, load, upload, and maintenance in the stations is just too much. And you actually get less money out of 6 automatic than you would out of 4 running automatic. Now, the other one that's important in this set is this 4 passenger. This would be indicative of what you would have in a situation where you were going between 2 cities that wouldn't be shipping goods to one another. So, for example, think of the black gold that we did recently, and you've got Kansas City, it's got wheat. Wichita has meat, so it would be more like Toledo and Grand Rapids. But Salina up there, which is also nearby, similar distance away, a little closer actually, is beer. So you'd have beer to beer, so no shipment of goods would occur between those 2 cities. So that would be similar to running a passenger only line, and this is the kind of numbers you would get on that kind of a line, and it would indeed pay for itself, but it would take it about 1.5 years rather than 8/10 of a year. So obviously running more trains on a line where you can ship goods back and forth is the way to go. Surprise, surprise, it's what we've said all along. And look at this 5-year window. It's more than $1 million worth. That Wichita to Kansas City line, if we didn't do anything else, if we didn't develop anything, help the cities grow, do anything, you could predict that the Wichita to Kansas City line would make you in a 5-year period $1 million roughly. And these numbers, even though they look very precise, are very rough because a lot of things could change over the course of the play. But would make you like $1 million more running that beer to meat line versus a beer to beer line. And this number here, 5-year replications, which is supposed to be over like that, 5-year replications is actually saying how many times would this make enough money that I could create another one just like it. So that's the whole idea of expanding, is how fast could I expand doing this? And where are we on this thing? That's a good point. I turned down all employees. I turned down all improvements. I wanted just the baseline. Obviously, if we're running a passenger line, we do passenger type research, You know that. But I turned it all down to keep it kind of clinically clean. So what was I saying? Okay, so you got your passenger line, which would be like beer to beer line. You've got your beer to meat line like this, running 4, and then you've got where you can see diminishing returns running 6. And these are these little slow suckers, 17 mile an hour. And so you could actually replicate that 4 line almost 5 times in 5 years, almost once a year. And your frequency would actually be 0.9 of a year. So, it's just, what, I just realized I did all this fancy math over here, and it's the same as this, the years to recover. I didn't even realize it came out the same. Oh, brilliant. Okay, so there, I could have saved a few minutes right there. So the years to recover is kind of the same thing as Oh, good one. All right, so the point being, we want this low number to be the lowest we can get it. We want this number to be the biggest we can get it. And we want this number to be the biggest we can get it. And guess what that is? That is a 4 train. I can't believe this. 4 trains running grasshoppers. And then let me show you the 1870 research with a bald one. Because now when I did the 1870, I ran through it the first time. I've done all this twice because I wanted to double check myself. The second time, though, when I got to 1870, I said, you know what? Automatic is the way to go because I had compared all these different things. So I just ran automatic tests, 1 train, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 trains, and ran them through. And if you look at the numbers, it's fascinating to me. If you look at the numbers, if you look at the projected actual profit, it goes up and up and up. It's still going up with 4, but oh, wait a minute, I got this wrong. Oh, but your years to recover starts to go back up because your expense has gone up. So you kind of had to hit this little sweet spot with these numbers. In fact, actually, this one right here, I've got 3 highlighted as the way to go. You could run 4 as well. There would be nothing wrong with running 4 trains because they would actually make a higher annual profit, but your years to recover would actually be slightly higher, obviously, because you bought 1 more train, and they're relatively expensive at $63.5. So, but that's the whole point, is that because of that recovery period, your 5-year window is actually better with 3 trains than it is with 4. Because you still have to pay off that 1 train. So that 1 train makes a difference. And you could replicate that 3-year line a couple of times in a 5-year period, whereas it would be slightly less for 4. So basically the sweet spot's 3 or 4 either way. So and it kind of 6 and 1 and half a dozen the other. I think the numbers say run 3 in the 1870 period and run 4 in the slower trains, but not run the 6 or 8 that I sometimes talk about in lines. Now, keep in mind, this is a line that's 140 miles in one direction, so it's a 280-mile trip. If we had a big, long line, like running Kansas City to, Fayetteville would be a longer line. I'm still in that black gold one. Or Kansas City to Dallas, if you ran a big, long line, clearly it would take more trains, and you'd want to think about this. So I'm just thinking of this as a way to extrapolate. We can say, well, if we've got a typical little line, Toledo to Grand Rapids, it's not an atypical line at all, then these are the numbers, and then you can use your own judgment to see how much do I want to run those up or run those down. But I just think it's interesting, the whole idea of if you find that sweet spot and you run the right amount of trains, you're going to maximize your profit. Look at this profit. Look how this number goes up on these. Well, those are a little skewed. Look at these here. Up, up, up. And then it goes up one more time, but we still got that price. So right in here, you're kind of hitting the peak. Then it starts to drop off. You actually make less money. Now, how could you make less profit off of 5 trains? Now, the reason being that I have more maintenance going on because there's more trains, so my costs are higher, and they start bumping into each other. You start getting to more waiting, and you start becoming inefficient. So this is telling us at what point do I become inefficient? It's somewhere 3 to 4 boundary. When I get to 5, I'm losing efficiency. You can only replicate this line once in a 5-year period, which is not great. And the other thing I noticed was you actually do better. This is the part I think is really weird. You do, if I'm not going crazy here, you do better in 1830 than you do in 1870. And I think the reason is all these guys here are the same cost in 1830 as they are in 1870. A little weird. Now the trains cost more, and even though they're twice as fast, you still kind of end up running the same amount of trains as the right number of trains, because the key factor is not as much the speed of the train, I don't think, as it is the turnaround ability in the stations and ability to run efficiently. So I think there are a lot of interesting data here, and I'm going to stop right there. That's enough nerd talk. So let's go back. This thing's still running. I would have done this on fast forward, and let's just do that and finish this off. You guys can draw your own conclusions, but what I'm seeing is I want to start running these in 1830, these little sweet four train setups, which saves me money. I can start investing on some other things. So I'm going to back off a little bit on the amount of trains I'm running. Not a lot though. Oh, and the other thing, I do want to talk about that. Slow down one more time. Do not go out there and build a line and run one train on it. Look at this. If I ran one passenger train, it'd be ridiculous. It would take me 11 years to get my investment back. The game is over before you would ever see that money back. You basically flush that money down the toilet. The only reason you would ever do that line is if I needed one more station to connect to give me an objective. And if you did, you need to double track it and put 4 trains on it and do it right so that you make money on it. That's what you need to do. And that's the mantra we've been saying all along. If 2 Cs are worth connecting, they're worth double tracking, they're worth running trains to making money. So this kind of backs that up. But do not run one. Even one automatic, which is a little better. It takes you 3.5 years to recoup your money, and you're only making $67,000 a year. And it's just not good. Not good at all. Okay? So I hope that helps you a little bit, kind of get some ideas about how many trains you put in. I am not claiming these numbers are perfect or even close to perfect, nor are my tests perfect because I'm not a machine. When I was building these lines, sometimes I do it better than other tests or whatever. There might be a random, I don't know how random the breakdowns are, but if there's a really random breakdown that happened, like it's June, it's almost the end of the quarter, and it stops right here, you don't get that data, that could skew the numbers a little bit, but I think generally speaking, these are pretty correct. And I was really happy to learn that there is that kind of that point of diminishing returns where you don't want to cram these lines up too much. So I hope that helps you kind of optimize your city routes. I hope that gives you some ideas for how you can plan and how you can expand your lines without spending so much money up front by just building this nice. In fact, you could do, if you had a regular station, this is an endpoint. You could easily do a single station here for 40 grand and make it even cheaper. Now that would cut down your turnaround time a little bit, so it'd slow down and cut your money a little bit, but it wouldn't be bad. And then you could turn around here and do another connection here. And if you were going to use this one to go to another one, you could use a regular train station here. So you have 2 tracks, one to Toledo, the other one to Louisville. Same thing here at Louisville, one go back to Indy, another one down here to Knoxville, wherever it is. So you get the idea. So I hope this helps you. I hope it helps you get some ideas for how you want to plan out your attack. And let's just see, we turned over June. So this is the number I would look at, is this right up here, the 64,000, to see how these trains did. And if you'll look at our expenses for the year, we are actually carrying the interest rate for those bonds. So this single line that we're looking at, we're really looking at a worst case scenario because we are carrying the interest rate on the 2 bonds that I opened up in order to build all this stuff. So, there'd be other stuff going on to help carry that load. So these are really worst case numbers. And I believe that, and also we're not fueling any growth. You grow these lines, and obviously they're going to make more because this guy isn't going to be running with 4 things. He's going to be running full if he's got 2 big trains. This one is full this time, but next time he picks up, he may not be. So I hope you get the idea. I hope I haven't beaten the horse completely senseless here, but I hope you get something out of this, like I said, and it helps you improve your gameplay. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.